After One News next, Mucking In says thanks to an urban Mother Teresa, and Sunday Theatre Murder in the Outback is based on the true tragedy of Peter Falconio and Joanne Lees, tonight on TV1.
Tonight, packing but not by choice. Calls for law changes after a mother's ordered back to Australia to face her allegedly abusive former husband. The big wet continues. Whole communities are evacuated as the death toll rises from the floods in New South Wales. Under pressure over water, Auckland's Deputy Mayor gets a rough reception from ratepayers who say he's sold out. And it was a big win, but at what cost? The All Blacks locking curse puts another key player out for up to 2 months.
Well,
Kia ora, good evening. It's designed to protect, but there's concern an international treaty could be putting the lives of some New Zealand children at risk. Under the Hague Convention, children wrongfully taken by one parent can be returned to their country of residence so custody disputes can be settled. But a Christchurch mother has become the latest in a string of parents forced back overseas to face an allegedly violent former partner.
Packing for Brisbane, but not by choice.
I have to return there in fear that he is going to carry out what he said. Smash me over, bury me, watch your back.
This woman, we'll call Sally, says she's being forced to cross the Tasman with her 2 young children to face her ex in an Australian family court. Already, she's taken 2 protection orders against him. They're both Kiwis and lived in Brisbane for 2 years before she fled with her kids.
They've come to New Zealand because of his violence, and now they're being forced to go back to Australia.
Tonight, Women's Refuge claims judges sticking to the letter of international law are putting women's and children's lives in danger.
We find it a really intolerable situation that the 2 children should have to be uprooted, taken back to Australia.
Sally's husband is using a treaty known as the Hague Convention to get the children back so custody can be sorted out. 3 courts in New Zealand all say they have to go because Sally can't prove he's a serious enough risk.
It sets a high threshold for issues around safety of children, which is a category of grave risk.
When you turn, I'm going to smash your face and I'm going to kill you. What is not grave risk about that?
Sally's ex has declined the offer of an interview, but his lawyer says the court documents show a very different picture from that painted by the mother. That aside, some legal experts believe the Hague Convention should be looked at.
Like a lot of those conventions, it can sometimes be perceived to be as something of a blunt instrument.
Sally's 4-year-old son has 3 holes in his heart. The last roll of the legal dice is on Tuesday, when she'll ask the family court to let her wait for an appointment so surgeons can see him.
And there's got to be a time where common sense comes before justice, or what they deem to be justice.
Phil Vine, One News.
Gales that lashed Australia's southeast coast are abating, leaving 8 people confirmed dead and another man missing. Whole communities are still cut off by flooding, and it could be some days before power's restored to 100,000 people. Australia correspondent Garth Bray reports from a storm-tossed Sydney.
It's been another wild night and a wet morning for New South Welshmen and women. More than 1,000 people have been evacuated from their homes in the Hunter Valley, though floodwaters are thought to have peaked.
My parents live out of town. They've been flooded in, and I rang Mum. She said it's a lot higher than 98.
78 is more like it. They're calling this a once-in-30-year storm. A man is still missing in Newcastle after falling into a storm drain while a falling tree crushed one motorist to death. Police have now found the bodies of a family of 5 killed when a road gave way further south. Some residents say this was an accident waiting to happen. They say the road had subsided several times before, but was never properly fixed.
Instead of fixing it properly, they just put a little bit of tar over the top. And yeah, now had a lot of rain, it's all collapsed.
In Sydney, mighty trees stood no chance in the face of winds peaking at 124 kilometres an hour. One woman was pinned in her bed by a fallen tree. Rescue crews had to saw the frame apart to free her. A rockfall crashed onto the main line north, damaging a train and forcing it to return to Sydney.
So once you get to Hornsby, to the RSL club there, have a beer for me.
Cars washed around in the flood still stood abandoned in the daylight. For drivers who thought their vehicles were safe in a shopping centre car park, morning brought a soggy surprise.
Because I thought hail was coming and my car got written off at the last hailstorm, so I put it under here so that it would be safe, and now it's written off again.
This ferry wharf, servicing a harbour suburb, was wrecked by the storm. And though beaches remain closed, it seems you can't keep a keen beach bunny down. Garth Bray, One News, Sydney.
Hundreds have crammed into a hall in Australia this afternoon to remember the 11 people who died in Tuesday's train crash. The service in the tiny town of Kerang in Victoria had to be moved to cater for the number of mourners. The district's mayor paid tribute to rescuers and to the people of his region.
With confidence we pray.
A place of helpful people, of comfort and warmth in difficult times.
One New Zealander was among those killed in Tuesday's disaster, Wellingtonian Nick Parker.
Smashed into a passenger train near Kerang.
Police and rescue teams have had a busy day on Mount Tongariro on the Central Plateau, mounting 3 helicopter rescues for 4 people, all of them overseas tourists. One couple, an Englishman and a French woman, were suffering from hypothermia. A Swiss man broke an arm when he slipped on ice and walked 2 hours for help. A 4th man from England fell while he was climbing and was badly hurt.
A bit of a gnarly day today on the mountain, actually, and not the best day for sightseeing. It's disappointing to see people up there in sand shoes in conditions that actually require an ice axe and crampons.
All those rescued had been dropped at the Tongariro crossing by tourist buses, and police say they were badly equipped and wrongly advised. Auckland's Deputy Mayor has found himself the target of protesters who jostled and heckled those attending a local body meeting today. The angry encounter comes 3 weeks before controversial water price rises are imposed in Auckland City.
Protesters throwing bags of chips at Auckland's Deputy Mayor Bruce Hucker. The price of a bag of crisps and a bottle of Coke is what he says water price increases will cost most Aucklanders.
Effort has made the water pressure group throw packets of chips. I'm glad they didn't throw bottles of Coke.
Activists fought to get into this afternoon's candidate selection meeting for left-leaning party City Vision. Reverend Hucker won re-selection despite some in his own party criticising his support for increased water charges. As for the protesters, he's labelled them extremists.
The poor people that used to support him because he was opposed to user pays, for the last 3 elections he has supported user charges.
But Auckland Mayor Dick Hubbard doesn't think water will be the most important issue at the upcoming election, giving that title to transport, saying the price hike will cost the average family an extra $100 every year. That aside, next month's water bill increase is on top of a similar increase last year. Auckland Mayor Dick Hubbard says he's a supporter of higher charges, but is keen to look at how they're levied in November after the election.
Are you parking the issue?
No, I'm not. It's just coincidence that the annual plan process starts after the election.
Dick Hubbard says the increases are necessary to fund a $40 million upgrade of the city's stormwater system. In the meantime, the government has ordered a parliamentary inquiry into Auckland City water rates. Ali Akram, One News.
In an unprecedented move, senior doctors are considering their first ever nationwide strike. They want more money and better conditions. The senior doctors are planning 2-hour stop work meetings across the country from July the 17th, which would affect some surgery.
Unfortunately, we're in competition with Australia and with the United Kingdom and other European countries. Their terms of employment are superior, and certainly their salary scales are much better.
And tomorrow night, One News health correspondent Laurelie Mason will take a closer look at the doctor's case in a special report. Well, you can fill a jumbo jet with a number of New Zealanders who suffer from head or brain injuries each week. And as Brain Injury Awareness Week kicks off tomorrow, worried educators are calling it our silent epidemic.
Waka-ama champion Tamati Paul had a bright future ahead of him until one fateful night when his world was shattered by a drunk driver. The Gisborne teenager received such bad head injuries he wasn't expected to live.
Everyone knows best is be safe, don't speed, don't drive drunk. Man, don't drive drunk.
But statistics just out from ACC and the Stroke Foundation paint a grim picture. 90 of us every day sustain a brain injury. Just under half of those are in car crashes.
In 1970, we had 700 people die on New Zealand roads. Last year, about 450.
We've got 1 million more drivers, loads more miles covered. The reality is that people are surviving their crashes. Rather than dying, they're coming away with brain injuries.
There are 33,000 brain injuries a year, ranging from mild to severe. While car crashes are the biggest culprit, around 20% are suffered through strokes. Sport plays its part too. At the top, boxing, followed by league and rugby. And when you've been hit, experts say no matter how trivial the blow, look out for vital signs.
The symptoms that we would be worried about include headache, vomiting, confusion and or unusual behaviour.
A word of warning supported by those that live with the effects of brain injuries each day. Billy Jo Ropiha, One News.
Well, a very lucky man last night was Ali Williams. He'll be a sore boy today, taking a blow to the head.
With Shabal, 2 of them.
Ouch,
bang.
big time.
He's a sore boy. He went under the knife. That's what happens when you go head to head with a French hard man.
Well, it's 1-1, isn't it?
Yep.
Really helping the
Bad news for Ali, great news for the man who somehow kept him out of the Blues. And check out John Daly's... There we are, battle scars after he claims his wife attacked him with a steak knife.
But first on One News, those crying times just get worse for Paris Hilton. Plus the Japanese gaming giant in the firing line over its use of an English cathedral. And all the glamour on Yorkshire's green carpet as Bollywood celebrates its best.